Ahoy there, trainers! Beware boarding this ship, ye may find more than ye bargained for. Hey there, trainers! Welcome to our spooky October episode. You are with PewterCityJim, and this time we're looking to add some pages to our Saue Pokédex. For those unfamiliar, Saue is this channel's ongoing Fakemon journey, where we come up with crazy critters to inhabit a region based on Southern California and some of the surrounding areas. We've got coastline galore, big cities, hot deserts, and more. So far, we have 118 species across 139 designs. If any of that sounds fun to you, awesome! I would love it if you could like, subscribe, and say hi in those comments. Remember, trainer, you, yes you, are welcome here. Anyway, today we're going to be taking a little trip out onto the high seas. In Long Beach, there's a big ship called the Queen Mary. It's been said to have been haunted since the 1930s. Built as a luxury passenger boat for cruises and mail delivery between the USA and Britain, it was eventually drafted into World War II, hauling as many as 15,000 soldiers at a time. There were many deaths aboard, and even now you can go there for haunted tours and the annual Dark Harbor Halloween event. Halloween is a pretty big deal here in SoCal, with a bunch of different events ranging from Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios and the Haunted Hayride at Griffith Park, which I actually just did the other day and it was an awesome time. But Dark Harbor taking place in and around a boat that is routinely a destination for ghost hunters. Well, that's a special event to be sure. Anyway, let's go get shipshape. So, Saue does have a fair few ghost types already, but I'm never averse to adding a few more. Honestly, almost every place in the world has a lot of historical events that err on the darker side, and Southern California is no exception. The Queen Mary specifically has such a big reputation for these, it's hard to not imagine including some. It's permanently moored off the coast of Long Beach, and now, not only is it a haunted tourist attraction, but it's a pretty nice hotel. My wife Misty and I used to stay there pretty often back in the day. The Solarian version of the Queen Mary will be dubbed the SS Esmeralda. A couple of things brought about this name. Number one, I imagine this ship as being kind of a precursor to the SS Anne from Kanto. Anne is a lady's name, Esmeralda is a lady's name, it works in that regard. Secondly, every place in Saue, every town or city or named locale is named after a gem, mineral, or a type of stone or related material. Sandy Shore City, Amethyston, Gravel Valley, Citrine Fields, the town of Jasper. Well, Esmeralda is a Spanish name meaning emeralds. You'll find this boat much later in the game and it would be completely abandoned. A true ghost ship. You get there via submarine ride because the actual Queen Mary is docked next to a submarine, which is, again, pretty neat. So let's start off our shenanigans with a nice little ghost type. The sailors who worked the Queen Mary wore a decidedly uncommon sort of uniform, and I want to pay homage to that. Some were said to have died on board, and people say they can be seen walking the corridors of the ship to this very day. You used to be able to buy souvenirs of them too, and wow, those are... You know, I am sure whoever made these put in a lot of work, but you would never, not ever, find one of these in my home. Oof, not for a gosh darned moment. Yikes. I decided to go with a decidedly cute little seafaring goober, a nice round head wearing a little sailor's cap and kerchief. It's not the exact style of that worn by the sailors on the Queen Mary, but rather a simplified homage. The colors of navy blue and the lighter, more cobalt blue are key indicators of this. The kerchief knot blocks their mouth, so you can't really tell if they're happy or not just by looking. The Queen Mary sailors also wore a rope around their shoulders, but due to the possible implications of a ghost with a rope between the head and body, I opted to leave the rope out. For now, anyway. And here we have Swablu, the little sailor Pokemon. Swablu are fun-loving ghost-type Pokemon that enjoy being in and around the water. Despite being able to float, they can turn this power off when performing dives into a pool or the ocean, and their cry sounds like the laughter of children, but from far away. Ensurf is their bitter rival. Type's just ghost for now. The name Swablu is from swab, as in to swab the deck, or the name given to someone who spends most of their time doing this. A swabby. Boo. Well, you don't get much ghostlier than that, do you? Oh, and the bit in the Pokédex about diving is because a lot of folks say they've seen ghosts jumping from up high in the Queen Mary's pool room. Abilities are Unnerve, which prevents an enemy from eating berries, and the hidden ability, Water Veil, which prevents this Pokemon being burned and boosts water-type moves. And speaking of moves, here are your stats and moves. Nothing really crazy here. He's just a little guy after all. He comes preloaded with a few standard ghost type moves, a couple of weak water type moves, and a little dark type representation in there as well. Alright, let's go ahead and evolve it. So I wanted this line to become a little bit more anthropomorphic or human-like in the middle stage. He looks like a goofy little sailor ready to do his best. Far from only being fit to swap the decks though, this little man can take care of more complex tasks around the boat, like stoking the boiler. Huh. Maybe that water availability really will come in clutch for this little monster. Colors are similar for the most part, but you can definitely see its facial expression now. Look at how happy he is. What might that smile be hiding? And here we have Saue, the little sailor Pokemon. Saue are industrious ghost Pokemon who will work tirelessly at whatever their captain, trainer, asks them to do. It seems, though, that this is out of a strange compulsion as opposed to a genuine desire to be helpful. While that smile never fades, it is hard to see happiness in its eyes. Still a pure ghost type, and the abilities don't change. It's pretty tall, though. The name Saue? Well, sailor and ah, which is the noise most of us would make if a ghost said boo to us, right? Anyway, here are your stats and moves. A bit of a boost, especially to speed. I guess having legs really does help out, huh? Again, it's a couple of kicky moves too, speaking of legs. And on to our final form. This evolution method is a little different than you might expect. You must give your Saue an escape rope item to hold and then level it up on the water. So while surfing, essentially. This creature is a darker one. See, the escape rope disappears after the evolution, meaning it's gone and, well, the Pokemon's still here, with you. Its escape gambit failed, and now it knows it's stuck here. Rather than letting it escape, the rope became tangled around the Sailor's body, ensnaring it on the water. The ghost legs are gone now, being replaced by tentacle-like lengths of frayed rope. It did, in this last change though, gain a promotion. No longer a sailor, this Pokemon is now a captain in its own right. That cheerful blue uniform becoming a dark charcoal gray embossed with gold. This uniform did tear up during evolution though, and to further symbolize the fact that this Pokemon represents a watery grave, its hands have become anchors, dragging it down to the bottom of that deep blue sea. And here we have Skippergle, the watery demise Pokemon. Freed from their cursed compulsion to comply with the captain, Skippergle can be quite unruly and hard to control. They believe they are in charge. They also believe that respect is owed to them. Only experienced trainers should make the attempt. We've added the water type to this line, so Ghost and Water. The Unnerve ability remains, but the hidden ability switches to Tangled Feet. This also raises the Pokemon's evasion when it becomes confused. This will be a great ability for this Pokemon, as you'll see soon. Oh, and it's also huge and kinda monstrous. I wanted a Davy Jones, Cthulhu, absolute monstrosity kind of a feel to it. As for stats and moves, it becomes defensive with a decent special attack. Moves are mostly the same, but we do see the addition of a couple of moves that will make use of that hidden ability in Thrash. This confuses the user due to fatigue after the move has run its course of 2 to 3 turns. It would learn this move as soon as it evolves, which is nice. So, there we go, a 3-stage ghost. Let's go ahead and lighten the mood a little bit though. One other thing the Queen Mary is known for is high tea. You can order little sandwiches and tea, little cakes and stuff, and it's frankly kind of delightful. But what happens once all the people are gone? In that time-honored Tsukumogami fashion, shenanigans. So we have a couple of teacup Pokemon already. Sinistea and Sinischa. But what is a teacup without a saucer, I ask you? So while you may encounter wild Sinistea on the SS Esmeralda, you would also encounter these cute little saucer guys. This is really just a very simple design. I wanted to make a saucer that looks like it would match the colors and vibe of Sinistea and Poltegeist. More of a companion Pokemon than a regional variant or anything. Where Sinistea is a little wet ghost that lives in the cup, this Pokemon is the saucer itself, and as such, it's a fairy type. It's an enchanted object more than a wandering spirit inhabiting an object. And here we have Porcelain, the cup carrier Pokemon. Porcelain love to carry cups around, serving drinks to people. While unrelated to Sinistea, they often find themselves in their company, and the two work surprisingly well together. Porcelain's name is a portmanteau of porcelain, from which many saucers are made, and loon as in crazy. 'Cause, you know, it's kinda crazy to be served tea by a sentient saucer, right? Your abilities are Pastel Veil, which prevents allies from being poisoned, and Rattled is your hidden ability. This boosts Porcelain's speed if it's hit by a ghost, dark, or bug type move, or if its opponent has Intimidate. Here are your stats and moves. Nothing too crazy here, mostly a special attacker with okay bulk and a simple list of moves. So, we have teacups and saucers. What could we evolve this fella into? So, food during a high tea is often served on these multi-tiered trays. I wanted to create a creature themed after one of those. I imagine if it was animated in 3D, it would glimmer and sparkle like Pokemon do when terastallized, because these things are oftentimes made out of actual crystal. The design itself is pretty simple, but not too simple, I don't think. Anyway, coloring this thing was an absolute blast. And here we have Waitier, the high tea Pokemon. Wei tea are often found in abandoned hotels, restaurants, and old family homes where high tea was a common practice. They love the smell of food and drink and will often congregate in areas where food is being prepared. They don't wish to eat the food though, and instead will help serve it to people in Pokemon. They have a strange dignity to them. Wei tier is a portmanteau of waiter, tier because it has multiple tiers. I spelled Wei as though it were Fey because it's a monotype fairy Pokemon. Hidden ability remains rattled, but the primary ability becomes Clear Body, which prevents a foe from changing its stats. Speaking of stats, here we go. Mid-level to be sure, but every dex needs a few of those. The move list expands to offer a little bit more type coverage though. Well, that's it for this month, trainers. Must be something up with the boiler. Hey, wait a second, the boiler shouldn't even be on. This boat's abandoned. Well, I guess I'll go check it out. Phew, it really is warm down here. I wonder why. The Queen Mary had multiple boiler rooms, and they are the places where several people lost their lives. The boilers they used for propulsion were called Yarrow boilers, and they were huge. Most notable for having condenser pipes that were completely straight, which was unusual for the time. They had other boilers too, called Scotch boilers, and those were used to provide electricity for guests and crew. We don't think much of stuff like that nowadays, but back in the day, pretty revolutionary. Man, it really is getting hot down here. And humid. It's like a sauna. Oh, that would be why. So I wanted to create something massive and kind of scary as like the final challenge of the SS Esmeralda. There are several places in Sola that are homes to Pokemon that would be considered legendary, but not legendary enough to make it to the box art. This would be one of them. It's based on the Yarrow boiler of the Queen Mary. The SS Esmeralda, though, had this Pokemon entrenched down in their boiler room, feeding it coal and water in exchange for steam. It hasn't seen people in quite some time. Well, not till you showed up. Will it be a pleasant surprise that someone has come to free it from its long and lonely time on the ship? Or does it harbor a grudge against all humankind for leaving it there, adrift on the sea? Either way, your team better be well and truly up to the task. It's sort of along the lines of Volcanion or Heatran, a similar sort of monster in its own way, but a little less organic and a little more mechanical. It jets steam up out of its body, and it seems light up brightly with barely contained fire as it fights. I colored it with this light yellow as that's a color that you see predominantly in the Queen Mary boiler and engine room. It's also a pretty unique color for a big beefy Pokemon like this, I think. Also, Yarrow Boiler. Yarrow the color is a range of yellow beiges, and it's also a name of a flower, the wild cultivar of which is white to light yellow. It's also the color of a lot of steam-powered radiators in my experience. Initially, I wanted it to have steam coming out of its feet, and I worked on that idea, but it just didn't look right. Lore-wise, it can jet steam out of its feet to aid in movement, and maybe someday I'll come back to the art and try to illustrate that, but today is not that day. And here we have Boilrog, the high-pressure Pokemon. Boilrog are man-made and mimic legends of a mythical Pokemon in power and design. Only a few have ever been seen in modern times, and the few who maintained contact with humans around the turn of the last century were enslaved to provide power to large machinery. It's water and fire type. The name is a portmanteau of Boil and Balrog. Yes, you shall not pass. A little token reference never hurt anybody. It's a fiery legendary beast, so it seemed fitting. The abilities are Steam Engine, which massively boosts speed when hit by a water or fire type move, which is literally, it just could not be more perfect, and the hidden ability White Smoke, which prevents other Pokemon from lowering its stats. It's also ginormous, dwarfing poor choice silhouette there. In terms of stats and moves, well, it is a legendary, so it's got pretty beefy stat spread. It's faster than you'd expect, considering its size and that it's made out of basically solid metal. The moves are pretty crazy and do make use of that high set of attack stats. So where would you find the SS Esmeralda in all of these monsters? Like I said earlier, it's a ghost ship and you'd get there via submarine. The sub can be launched from Opal Bay toward the south of the map, and the ship itself is out on the ocean. And there you have it, trainers. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm very much looking forward to catching you in the next one, but till then, take care. Bye.